After seemingly rescuing Clara Oswald, only to find out that her death is a fixed point in time and must happen, the Doctor realizes something. With all the mischief they get into together, Clara and the Doctor are the hybrid, destined to destroy all things. Unless he finally really separates from her. So, after a bit of memory wipes shenanigans, he set himself up as a professor at a local college, university, and has been teaching there for 50 years. But it's time the professor got himself a new student. And so we meet Wilhelmina Potts, although she goes by Bill. She's not a student. She works at the cafeteria, often giving extra fries to girls that give her bedroom eyes. Except after a while she realizes that those poor girls have gone from supermodel to chubby supermodels. Meanwhile, the Doctor likes to teach his students about how time is actually a series of snapshots. Some snapshots depicting a chance encounter between Bill and a girl who's got a weird marking in her eye that looks like a star. So I call her Star Girl, although her name is Heather. She's important. Pay attention. Bill also likes to audit the Doctor's classes, even though she doesn't have to. There's just something about him that draws her in. And no, it's not a romantic feeling, because those feelings are reserved for Stargirl, who, despite liking Bill immensely, is desperate to go somewhere else. Then, while Bill is getting into the Doctor's good graces with stories about the Fry Girl and how she wants to learn. She doesn't just want to settle. Stargirl sends for Bill and shows her a weird puddle that shouldn't be there because it hasn't rained and the toilets in the university work. So the boys aren't answering nature's call outside either. Now they both sense a wrongness to the puddle, but it seems to have entranced Stargirl. And so, after having Bill promise not to... scratch that. After Bill gets Stargirl to promise that she won't go anywhere without her, Bill talks to the Doctor about this potential alien incursion. And he, according to her, runs to investigate looking like a penguin with its butt on fire. And yeah, Capaldi's Doctor run is just a wee bit comical. And the Doctor, with a quick inspection, finds out what's what. The puddle isn't normal water. When you look into the puddle, it's not a reflection. Heather, Stargirl, could see it clearly because she's got that star in her eye, so she could see her reflection and whether or not it was wrong. Or should I say, backwards. what looked back at those who looked in the puddle was actually a copy. And shortly after this revelation, Heather disappears. And the Doctor realizes that this water that isn't water is potentially some sort of alien mechanical fluid that is useful somehow. And evidence suggests that whatever left this puddle was a spaceship. When it happened, no idea. But one thing's for sure, Heather's gone. The puddle sensed her desire to leave, and it gave her that ability by making her like it. And eventually, Heather returned, or something that looks like Heather, only sort of ghostly, dripping water, much like the flood on Mars. And after a bit of a horror movie scene where Bill comes home to find someone's in her bathroom, only her adoptive mom is out bar hopping. And since Bill realized a while back that the Doctor is maybe more than what he seems after her adoptive mom finds a miraculous box of old photographs of Bill's biological mom that seem to have been taken by the Doctor, she and he figure out that this thing is alien in nature, and it's pursuing somebody, either the Doctor or Bill, or maybe it wants access to the TARDIS. But the Doctor decides to test this theory, much to Nardal's chagrin, because they have to stay and protect some kind of vault that's beneath the school. But don't worry, the Doctor will be able to sort this out and be back in time for tea. So, at first, they move in space, moving around Earth, only to find the thing that used to be Stargirl, who the Doctor dubs the pilot, is able to pursue them across the planet and eventually moves the TARDIS to another planet in the far future. And yeah, Stargirl is able to follow them there as well. So, the Doctor decides to test whether or not this new and improved Heather is laser-proof. He takes Bill and Nardal, with Bill finding out what the TARDIS really is, slowly, to a skirmish between the Daleks and the Movellans. Yeah, we actually get to see the Movellans in action against the Daleks. Although, they're not the gray and black Daleks that I was expecting. The Dalek we see is more Time War-ish looking, which is a shame. I was hoping for the old paint job. But anyway, he tricks Stargirl into getting shot by a Dalek, only to reveal that Heather can absorb a Dalek as well, and reduce it to water, basically, or whatever this thing considers water. And then, after a bit of distraction from Nardal wielding an older sonic screwdriver on the Doctor's orders, the Doctor and Bill confront Stargirl because he realizes something. A little piece of Heather is still in there, and her desire not to leave Bill is as strong as ever. So he convinces Bill to release Heather from her promise, but not before Heather tempts Bill with visions of where they could go and what they could see. And boy, is it tempting. But eventually, Heather lets Bill go. And Bill's visibly shaken up when Heather finally departs. Nardal even notices that Bill's crying, although Bill's not sure if those tears are hers. Strange line. Anyway, they head back to the present, and in order to keep his anonymity at the school, he has to erase Bill's mind. But she requests humbly that she be allowed to remember for a little while, and then she'll let him do what he's got to do. And after a bit of debate with Nardal, the Doctor allows Bill to keep her memories and promises that they might be able to find Heather, or whatever Heather is now, out there somewhere. Because Bill's probably reconsidering the offer. So off they go. They head to the distant future, a haven planet where survivors from a man-made apocalypse are going to take refuge. Unfortunately, before Bill and the Doctor get there, the entire population seems to have been consumed by intelligent micro-robots called Vardis. Vardis. More or less. And something causes these robots to reduce the last two humans in the settlement to bones. Quite horribly. And the weird thing is, one of the humans, before she died, she insisted that they both keep smiling, because something about the human face seems to trigger the the Vardy interface robots, which turn out to communicate in emojis, so they're dubbed emojibots. Eventually, the Doctor and Bill arrive and explore. They get little badges that fit on their backs and display their emotions in the form of emojis. Now, you can't see what your emoji is, because that would affect your emotions. So, there you go. So they explore a bit, and they come across a garden that's being fed calcium-based fertilizer. And the Doctor has seen it all, so the sense of wonderment that Bill is experiencing, well, the Doctor is more worried about where all the people are and what happened. So he reveals that after finding a necklace with a hologram of a little boy inside, he shows Bill what the fertilizer actually is. Turns out this world is being prepared by shepherd settlers, and those shepherd settlers have all been killed. So when the population gets to this world, they're done for. But since the doctor can't leave well enough alone and allow the humans that are going to show up die, he instructs Bill to go back to the TARDIS and stay there while he sorts this thing out. Only Bill's not inclined to just sit around. She's rather proactive. Kind of like a certain blonde who would have ended up as Auton fodder had the doctor not told her to run. So anyway, they eventually find two things out. Number one, the buildings are all comprised of the micro-robots. Number two, the spaceship that landed the shepherds on the world is still relatively intact, and is actually housing a whole bunch of people in cryo-freeze. Except for one old lady who apparently died of natural causes, and the doctor realizes what happened. The robots were programmed to keep the humans happy. But when the old lady died, many people mourned her loss, and the robots, who slowly but surely learned into becoming sentient, couldn't process grief. So, in order to keep the population happy, they would simply get rid of the unhappy people. And that sort of led to a cascade effect which killed all of the shepherds, and will in fact kill the population of the world as they're coming out of cryosleep and finding out their friends and relatives are dead. One of whom being the boy whose hologram was in that locket. The doctor and Bill try to convince the colonists to at least pretend to be happy by putting on a happy face, which apparently affects the mood, so the doctor's best advice for now is to smile like you got gassed by the Joker. Only quickly the robots see through the ruse and start the killing all over again. Some of the humans fight back, but the doctor has a more proactive approach. He wipes the robots' memories and addresses them as sapient beings, and appoints himself a negotiator for the joint human-robot colony. Will it survive? Only time will tell. But the doctor and Bill did the best they could, so let's hope for the best. Unfortunately, when the doctor sends them back to the present, they don't end up on the present. They end up on the frozen Thames River a couple hundred years in the past, and they meet an elephant. It seems they've ended up in London during the last Great Frost Fair. It seems back in the day, before excessive global warming, during the quote-unquote Little Ice Age, the Thames River would periodically freeze over, and people would host fairs on the river. Unfortunately, there's something in the river, these bioluminescent looking things are luring people away from the hustle and bustle of the fair to areas that are unsafe, and the people vanish. So after debating about the butterfly effect, Bill and the doctor decide to enjoy the fair. Bill wants to try all the food, only to find out the food is kind of gross in this century. And to be fair, some of it is, a little too exotic for my taste. And apparently Bill's too. But then when a street urchin lifts the doctor's sonic screwdriver and runs off, only to be swallowed by something in the ice, with the doctor narrowly retrieving the screwdriver, does he decide to stay and do something? Also, the TARDIS won't move, except away from the ice, so it's a little less likely to sink in case the ice should crack. Bill is a little put off by the fact that the doctor is more worried about the stupid screwdriver than he was about some little boy dying pointlessly. And he makes up for it by reassuring the boy's friends, the other street urchins, that he'll figure out what's going on and protect them. Now Bill, she gets another look at the doctor's checkered past. The fact that he's over 2,000 years old, the fact that he's got a bit of a body count under his belt. But the doctor reassures her that in order to do what needs to be done to help innocent people, he's got to shove aside the negative feelings that are balling up inside him that we got a glimpse of when he convinced Bonnie not to use the Osgood boxes. So they get to work. They find out that someone is promoting the fair, and also that same someone is in charge of a dredging facility at the end of the river, at the other end, the opposite of where the creature's mouth apparently is. After a brief encounter with the creature using dive suits that work pretty well for such primitive technology, they go to where the creature terminates and find out that they're dredging mud, or what looks like mud, out of the river. And thanks to a very chatty overseer, they find out that it's fuel. It burns better than coal. It even burns underwater. And yes, it's the manure of the big fish. Now, whether or not this Leviathan is natural to Earth, we don't know. But we do know this. It seems that the giant fish is actually part anglerfish. And it's either its offspring or regular sized anglerfish that help lure prey to where they need to be in exchange for some food. These fish have been here a long time. And we find out that the owner of the company that's dredging up the fish manure. He knows about the creature. It's a family secret. And he's intentionally letting people get fed to the beast. Because without that special fuel, he's got to work his iron foundries with coal, which is just as dangerous to harvest as this fish poop. The thing is, people going into a coal mine know what they're getting into. They volunteer, or they get paid. This jerk is just feeding innocent men, women, and children to a fish to benefit from its droppings. And we see that he is a massive racist. The second he sees Bill, he calls her a creature, orders her to get out of his chair, says that she's in the presence of her betters, and just for that, the doctor clocks him. Yes! The doctor rarely gets violent like that, but when he does, he's got a darn good reason. And the sad thing is, after the doctor gives a speech about how human progress isn't measured in wealth, it's about the value you place on a life like the poor boy who died in that river. Someone unimportant. That's true progress. And the guy just refuses to get it. Or he does get it, but he doesn't care. This guy, I don't think even the Daleks would consider him a viable option for transformation, because he's just pure evil. Unfortunately, he's also got a lot of goons. So, after spilling his plan to use some of that fuel to blow up the river, so all the people and the frost fair and the elephant get fed to the creature, he ties the doctor and Bill up right next to the bomb. And despite the fact that Bill tries to call for help, even her prodigious lungs are powerless against the cacophony that is the last great frost fair. Luckily, the doctor has a plan. He uses a sonic screwdriver to cut the ropes, and the henchman sent to guard them unwittingly gets killed when he holds the sonic screwdriver for too long, and the little anglerfish suck him under, but not before retrieving the screwdriver. The doctor does, that is. And he instructs Bill, who is a little shell-shocked about witnessing so much death in one day. She's never seen someone die, so it's a little unnerving for her. He instructs her to gather the street urchins and to start herding people off the river by saying the frost is coming early and a woman fell through the ice. Run away. And it's working until the capitalist pig, and yeah, I'm comfortable calling him that because he's doing all this for money, and he is greedier than the greediest hog ever. So yeah, he is a capitalist pig. More so than a certain orange fella. Anyway, he sees Bill and realizes he's got to put his plan into action early. Luckily, the doctor was able to use Bill and the urchins as a distraction, while he donned a dive suit, used a sonic screwdriver to lure the anglerfish into dropping him into the river, where he set up the explosives on the chains that have been holding the creature in place for who knows how long. And so, this possibly alien, definitely ancient megafauna, is a fish a fauna? I don't know. The big fish is finally freed from its bonds and happily swims away. Because earlier, the sounds that the creature made, the echolocation that Bill and the doctor heard while they were under the water, the sounds were decidedly painful. The creature was suffering where it was. So, when the doctor gave Bill the option of killing the creature or saving it, and potentially unleashing something dangerous on the people of London, Bill, like Clara before her, made the right decision and saved the fish, which proceeded to crack the ice right under the capitalist pig, who didn't survive. As for the street urchins, well, the doctor changed the capitalist pig's will, leaving all his money and his estates to one of the urchins, securing their future and their descendants' future. Who knows? Maybe the little black girl who was among the urchins. There were a lot more black people than... well, I'll tell you in a minute. Who knows? Maybe the little black girl who was among the urchins was Bill's actual descent or ancestor. Although that's never confirmed. Although I like to think it is. Earlier, after debating the butterfly effect and the doctor making a couple jokes at Bill's expense, Bill notices there are a lot more black people in London in the early 1800s than TV shows and movies let on. And the doctor quips, "So was JC. History's a whitewash." That was a nice little jab to how certain figures are portrayed. Anywho, eventually, the doctor and Bill get back to the present, and while the doctor is basically trying to keep our doll from having a conniption fit because the doctor keeps breaking his oath not to go anywhere but to stay and guard this mysterious vault, Bill and some fellow students are trying to find some housing. Bill actually was able to become a student thanks to the doctor, so now she's got to have some housing. She can't live with her adopted mom, who doesn't realize Bill's actually gay. Anyway, so after a bit of fruitless searching, one house is one of those tiny houses, but they expect 6 people to live in it. Heck no. Another house is okay, but it's next to possibly a stockyard with a very loud horn. Eventually some sort of creepy guy shows up, offering them a mansion with an off-limits tower and weird creeks that come from nowhere, and trees that seem to move in the wind, except there's no wind, according to the doctor. But the kids jump at the chance, and they all sign a contract with the old guy and move in. Only to slowly start disappearing. And the doctor realizes that there's something in the wood of the house. And yeah, turns out they're these weird wood lice. The size of a hissing cockroach. And they can move through wood as easily as worms move through dirt. And they consume all the young people except for Bill. And the culprit is the old man. Seems 70 years ago, his daughter fell ill. And in order to cheer her up, he showed her these weird pill bug looking things and left them with her. By the way, he found them in the garden. Anyway, he left her with the pill bugs and some music, only to find that they'd healed her. Only they started transforming her into a wood creature. A dryad, as the doctor calls them. And so, the guy kept feeding tenants to his daughter. The wood lice, the dryads, consume the people, absorb them into the house, and they give the woman new life. But then the doctor realizes something. If that guy's been around for 70 years, why isn't he made of wood too? And it's not just paint. He is still flesh and blood. Turns out, the wood lice were able to partially preserve the woman, but her memory got a little screwed up. She's not actually the guy's daughter. She's the guy's mother. And he's been protecting her ever since he was a little boy. Only, he shut them both out of the world. So much so that I can unfortunately relate to the guy. Desperate not to have to watch his last parent die. And terrified of having to exist in this screwed up world without her. Luckily, the doctor convinces her to assert her control over the wood lice and prevent them from eating Bill. And so, in a final embrace, the wood lice are allowed to consume mother and son together because they've taken too much from the world and they've lived long past when they should have found some semblance of peace. But the woman is able to at least give back the last batch of young people the wood lice consumed, reconstituting them. And so, Bill's friends are all saved, and sadly the house collapses. Why the doctor didn't figure trying to contact a unit to investigate this, I don't know. But, maybe we'll never know. So, on to the next adventure. The doctor gets a touch of wanderlust. He misses the vacuum of space after giving the students a lecture about what happens to the body in space without a spacesuit, when they were supposed to do a project about agriculture. Bill, Nardole, and the doctor head to a space station that's experiencing distress call. Meanwhile, a lady who is surviving outside in a spacesuit confesses to this guy she likes, who's in front of her, that she wants to have kids with him. Only her radio is not working, so he doesn't hear a darn thing. He also doesn't hear her scream as she's killed by what can only be described as space zombies. See, the spacesuits are robotic, and someone apparently hacked them, causing them to terminate the life functions of their wearers and continue moving, puppeting the dead bodies around in a very macabre way, sounding almost like Cybermen. That's what's unnerving. Anyway, sadly, the happy couple are terminated, and Team TARDIS finds out the hard way that oxygen on board the station is only allowed in the spacesuits, which have force fields around the heads to protect them inside the station, but they do require helmets outside in the vacuum. And so, when they're cut off from the TARDIS and any extra oxygen they had, they're forced to don suits that were in the maintenance bay. They eventually hook up with some survivors, including a blue guy who gets indignant at Bill for being a little weirded out that he's blue, accusing her of racism casually. And Bill being shocked at ending up being accused of that, because apparently black people are not discriminated against in the future, but blue people just might be. That was a little bit of awkwardness. Anyway, Team TARDIS finds out that the survivors may have been hacked, which is weird because usually bad guys don't hack someone unless they want money, and these guys who've been mining copper from an asteroid, I think, haven't been productive. They're at their lowest production value. And later the Doctor finds out that turns out the suits are all working perfectly. The company has monetized air. You're allowed breaths rather than minutes. And if you can't pay up, the suit kills you. Also, the suits kill the crew because they're all being replaced. Basically, whoever's running this company has the same mindset of the guy who was feeding people to a fish way back in the early 19th century. And frankly, I'll believe it. Humanity is the greatest and the worst, especially when it comes to money. But before then, everyone decides to head to the core, which is the safest part of the station. But along the way, the blue guy and another guy get killed by the suits, who zap the people in the nervous system, killing them instantly and painfully. Unfortunately, at one point, they have to spacewalk, and Bill's helmet isn't working, so she tastes vacuum briefly. Thankfully, getting reminded by the Doctor to not hold her breath, because without pressure around her, that's dangerous. Luckily, the Doctor is able to not fix her helmet, but give her his. So he ends up tasting vacuum too, but a little bit longer. his Time Lord physiology is able to withstand the vacuum a little bit longer than her, who passes out briefly, only to see snippets of battle that the survivors are going through against the suits. But her oxygen deprivation has prevented her from witnessing the whole thing properly. Also, while the doctor's physiology kept him alive, his eyes were severely damaged to the point where he can't see. And earlier, one of the suits smashed his sonic screwdriver. So, they're low on air, no eyesight, no sonic, and space zombies are bearing down on them. So the Doctor faces one of his toughest trials yet. But, in a fit of mad genius, he wires up the coolant system for the nuclear core for the station into their life support systems. So, when the suits, including Bill, who got stuck in place briefly and was seemingly killed, only for it to be revealed that her suit only paralyzed her temporarily because it didn't have enough power to kill her. Anyway, the suits, rather than killing everyone, because that would be expensive for the company, give the survivors their oxygen, which is fully topped off. And Bill, despite some of the oxygen deprivation and a bit of a nerve damage, is okay. Certainly doing better than the Doctor, although now that he's saved them all, he's feeling kind of smug. So he drops off the two remaining workers to a place where they can lodge complaint about the fact that human lives are now considered worth less than the company bottom line. Basically, it's the gangers all over again, but with proper humans this time. Not that gangers are any less human when they become sapient. Anyway, Team TARDIS gets back to the ship, their ship. Nardole repairs the Doctor's eyes, good as new, and the day is saved. Although Nardole reams out the Doctor something fierce, because if they had died out there, and they did come close to dying, then no one would be around to protect the vault, and whoever or whatever is inside might get out. Problem is, the Doctor can't worry about that now, because he reveals to Nardole that he's still blind. What does that mean for the Doctor and the rest of Team TARDIS and whoever or whatever is in that vault? We'll find out next time. Until then, this is Mr. J signing out and reminding you, always hold your breath when confronting rubbish robots from the dawn of time, and never hold your breath in the vacuum of space. And always read the fine print before you sign a contract. See you at the next Frost Fair, folks.